Election night exit polls have been around for decades, and it used to be that networks reported the results before the polls were closed. That changed in 1980, but now one news organization says it's going to turn back time. Election night, 1980. Jimmy Carter was seeking a second term. Ronald Reagan was his challenger. It was just 8:15 Eastern Time when NBC called the race.
Ronald Reagan will win a very substantial victory tonight. Very substantial. That's our belief as of the moment, based on polls in key states.
But people were still voting on the West Coast, leading to a fierce backlash and new policy. The broadcast networks all agreed going forward not to call races based on exit polls until all polls were closed.
A bit later, when the polls start closing, we'll show you how these voters broke down. We can't do that right now because the polls are open.
But now Slate says it's going to break with that tradition by providing exit poll data from key swing states in real time, a plan Slate defended in an interview with the Poynter Institute, saying there is no good evidence to support the theory that revealing exit poll data influences voter turnout.
It is on the basis of those exit polls, Wolf and Jeff, that CNN is felt comfortable enough to make the calls that you just did.
Of course, being comfortable making a call doesn't mean you're always right.
We are somewhat embarrassed to tell you that our call, we were not alone in making it, of Florida for Mr. Gore has turned out to be premature.
Regardless, Slate says it won't be calling any races, just tracking data, further stating that right now, the media are essentially colluding with each other to make voters less informed. I, for one, I'm going to be watching Slate. I'm going to be tuning it in. I say there's a smugness to the fact that the news media all know what the results are. These exit polls come in waves at 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and also come back at 7. People are calling all around. What have you got? What do you got? What are the polls showing? The news media knows how the country is tracking, and no one else does. And I think it's time. I have no problem with this. They're not going to call the race. They're not going to say, they're not even going to call states. They're not going to say, Clinton takes Virginia. They're not going to say that. They're not going to say who. They're just going to say, here's what the exit polls, their exit polls, by the way, by something called Cast Your Vote, some outfit out of Palo Alto, California.
Emily, with all due respect, I adamantly disagree. The smugness is the attitude of media outlets like Slate that prioritize their own buzz and their ability to attract someone like you to following them all day over the broader public good.
What's the public good?
First of all, just because you're not making a call, to release incomplete data, and come on, everyone's going to look at it and extrapolate, this is happening, and well before the polls close. I don't care.
So what's the negative outcome of that?
The potential for deterring voters from turning out.
There's no proof of that.
There's no proof that that doesn't happen. I think it's basic common sense that if voters see, and other media outlets are going to pick up on this, if they see, Ohio's gone, Trump has won Ohio, that some voters will be discouraged.
Don't think that'll
Trump
happen.
That's an awful big risk to take with the fairness of our democracy.
I've always felt that being out there and talking to voters over the years, that people are committed. If they are planning to go out and vote, they like their candidate or they believe so much in the freedom that they have and the responsibility to go out and vote that someone saying that someone's way up or someone's way down isn't going to influence people by big numbers. I think the biggest issue that you find that will stop people from going to the polls is either rain or snow. But when it comes to poll numbers, I don't think that's going to be a factor.
Why don't we cover suicides then?
We probably
I think
should.
we have been recently.
We probably should.
In the past, you never mentioned anything about suicide.
We didn't used to cover domestic violence, John.
Well,
now we do.
That's a big difference.
I know. Well, let's stick on the point here.
Well, I'll be clicking refresh about 1,000 times that day. But nevertheless, I completely agree with John that this is terrible for democracy.
But you want to know. Why is it terrible for democracy?
Well,
this is democracy.
I'm going to vote anyway, so it doesn't matter. But, I can certainly see some people saying, I was going to go vote, but I think I'll have another drink because the election's over. I think a lot of people will do that.
I doubt that.
The president is the only thing on the ballot.
They're not watching Slate, for one thing.
If they find out about it, they will. The presidential race is the only one they bother to vote in. And if they think that's been determined, they're going to say, "Oh, the heck with it. I'm going to stay home."
I think, I mean, I'm with John and Dan. I mean, I think it gives another reason for people to stay at home and not vote.
God, I had lots of people today on my side, so I wish I had a few of them on my set.
Well, I'm on your side on this.
And so, I mean, I don't believe, I mean, I know that the stories is that there's no evidence, but, I'd like that to be tested a little bit more. I mean, and before we roll this out. But luckily, Slate it's just doing a few states, but sure enough, it's going to be all over social media. I think it will be a big news event.
I think one of their arguments is that the media is withholding information that they have. They're not saying
we withhold information that we have all the time temporarily.
Oftentimes for national security reasons and like that. but not
Police,
because-
public safety.
Yes, that's important. But this is just all part of. John, it's
For
part of
8 lousy hours, we can hold our water. It's not going to mean the
the
end
networks
of
aren't going to do it. Slate's doing it.
Look, I think technology too allows people to find out a lot more information now than they did years ago. So whether or not people are reporting polls or there's, people are picking it up based on word on the street or whatever, I think people are pretty knowledgeable now before they decide to go or not go.